television franchises have mastered emotional restraint the way NCIS Origins has. Rather than relying on explosive twists alone, the series has slowly built its emotional core through silence, longing glances, unfinished conversations, and the burden of memory. That is precisely why the long-awaited Gibbs and Lala moment landed with such force. Fans were not simply reacting to romance. They were responding to years of emotional architecture carefully constructed beneath the procedural storytelling. When the show's bosses finally broke down the scene everyone had anticipated, the conversation revealed something deeper than plot mechanics. It exposed how creativity works in storytelling, not through constant noise, but through patience, emotional timing, and the courage to let characters evolve naturally. At the same time, the shocking kidnapping twist involving a major character reminded audiences that tension and vulnerability remain essential ingredients of compelling drama. The combination of emotional payoff and sudden danger demonstrates the delicate balancing act that creative television writing requires. Great storytelling is not about choosing between intimacy and suspense. It is about understanding how each strengthens the other. Creativity, especially in long-running television narratives, often thrives under limitations. Writers must honor established characters while still discovering new emotional territory. They must satisfy fan expectations without becoming predictable. In many ways, the latest developments in NCIS Origins offer a perfect lens through which to explore how creativity functions in modern storytelling. The Gibbs-Lala moment and the unexpected kidnapping twist reveal how imagination, emotional intelligence, and narrative discipline combine to create stories that resonate deeply with audiences. One of the most fascinating aspects of creativity is its relationship with anticipation. Modern culture frequently celebrates instant gratification. Social media rewards immediacy, streaming platforms encourage binge watching, and audiences often expect rapid payoffs. Yet some of the most memorable creative moments emerge from restraint rather than speed. The chemistry between Gibbs and Lala worked precisely because the writers resisted the urge to rush it. For episodes, viewers watched emotional tension build gradually. Conversations carried hidden meaning. Small gestures mattered more than dramatic speeches. This kind of storytelling reflects a mature understanding of creativity because it trusts the audience to participate emotionally. Instead of spelling everything out, the writers allowed viewers to interpret silence, hesitation, and vulnerability. That creative confidence is increasingly rare. Many modern shows fear subtlety because subtlety requires patience. However, NCIS Origins demonstrates that emotional investment grows when audiences are given space to feel rather than being told what to feel. The Gibbs-Lala scene became powerful because viewers had already imagined countless possibilities before it finally happened. Creativity often flourishes not in the final reveal, but in the anticipation leading toward it. This approach also reflects a broader truth about artistic creation. Whether in literature, music, painting, or television, audiences connect most deeply with works that respect emotional buildup. A musician does not place the loudest note at the beginning of every song. A novelist does not reveal every secret in the first chapter. Likewise, television writers understand that emotional pacing creates meaning. The creative success of the Gibbs-Lala relationship also comes from characterization. In many television dramas, romance becomes superficial because it exists only to create temporary excitement. Characters are paired together without emotional logic, and relationships often feel manufactured for ratings rather than narrative integrity. NCIS Origins avoided that trap by grounding the relationship in character psychology. Gibbs, as audiences already know from the larger NCIS universe, is a man shaped by discipline, grief, loyalty, and emotional restraint. A younger version of him cannot simply become romantically expressive overnight without betraying the character's established identity. Creativity here lies in understanding continuity while still finding emotional freshness. Lala functions as more than a love interest. She becomes a mirror reflecting the emotional possibilities Gibbs struggles to confront. Their interactions work because they reveal internal conflict rather than merely advancing plot. The best creative storytelling always understands that external events matter only when they expose internal truths. This is why audiences become attached to fictional relationships. Viewers do not simply want characters to kiss or confess feelings. They want emotional honesty. They want moments that feel earned. Creativity in television writing depends on making audiences believe that characters possess lives beyond the screen. The Gibbs Lala moment succeeded because it felt emotionally authentic rather than mechanically designed. Equally important is the role of vulnerability in creativity. Television heroes are often portrayed as invincible problem solvers, yet audiences tend to connect more deeply when strong characters reveal weakness. Gibbs has always carried emotional armor, and watching cracks form in that armor becomes compelling because it humanizes him. Creative storytelling frequently depends on contradiction. Strong characters need vulnerability. Confident characters need doubt. Disciplined characters need emotional chaos. These contrasts create dramatic tension because they mirror real human experience. People are rarely emotionally simple, and the best fictional characters reflect that complexity. The kidnapping twist involving a major character further reinforces this idea. Sudden danger shifts the emotional atmosphere of the series and reminds viewers that safety is never guaranteed. More importantly, it forces characters to react under pressure, exposing fears, loyalties, and emotional priorities. Creativity in suspense writing relies heavily on emotional stakes. A kidnapping matters only if audiences care about the person in danger. This is why character development remains essential even in procedural dramas. Explosions and plot twists may capture temporary attention, but emotional investment sustains long-term engagement. The juxtaposition of romance and danger also demonstrates another important aspect of creativity: tonal balance. Great storytellers understand rhythm. If a show remains emotionally heavy at all times, audiences become exhausted. If it remains lighthearted constantly, emotional stakes disappear. Creative television writing requires careful modulation between tension, intimacy, humor, and tragedy. The episode's structure appears designed around this principle. Just as audiences emotionally settle into the long-awaited Gibbs-Lala development, the kidnapping disrupts that emotional comfort. This creates psychological whiplash, which heightens engagement. Viewers suddenly realize that emotional progress can be interrupted by chaos at any moment. This reflects life itself. Human experiences rarely unfold in neat emotional categories. Moments of happiness often coexist with fear or uncertainty. Creativity becomes powerful when it captures these contradictions honestly. The writers of NCIS Origins appear to understand that emotional realism matters more than simplistic storytelling formulas. Another fascinating dimension of creativity visible in this storyline is collaboration. Television is never the product of a single imagination. Writers, directors, actors, cinematographers, editors, and composers all contribute to emotional storytelling. The Gibbs-Lala moment likely succeeded not only because of dialogue, but because of performance choices, camera framing, music, lighting, and pacing. Creative collaboration requires trust. Actors must trust writers to honor their characters. Writers must trust performers to communicate emotional nuance. Directors must trust subtle performances rather than forcing melodrama. When collaboration succeeds, scenes gain emotional depth impossible through isolated effort. This collaborative nature of television creativity often goes underappreciated. Audiences may remember a single line of dialogue or a particular expression, but those moments emerge from countless creative decisions working together invisibly. The emotional power of the episode likely depended as much on silence and visual storytelling as on spoken words. Furthermore, creativity within established franchises presents unique challenges. Prequel series are especially difficult because audiences already know elements of the future. Writers must create suspense, even when certain outcomes seem predetermined. In NCIS Origins, Viewers already understand aspects of Gibbs' future emotional life, which means the writers must find tension not in what happens, but in how it happens. That challenge demands inventive storytelling. Creativity here involves discovering emotional spaces unexplored by the original series. The writers cannot simply repeat familiar character beats. They must deepen them. They must reinterpret iconic traits through the lens of youth, uncertainty, and emotional formation. The Gibbs-Lala storyline achieves this by adding emotional context to a character audiences believed they already understood. Suddenly, Gibbs becomes not just a hardened investigator, but a man shaped by specific emotional experiences. Creativity often emerges through reinterpretation rather than invention from scratch. This idea applies far beyond television. Many artists create meaningful work not by inventing entirely new concepts, but by revisiting familiar themes through fresh emotional perspectives. Shakespeare adapted existing stories. Filmmakers reinterpret myths repeatedly. Musicians sample older sounds. Creativity is often evolutionary rather than purely revolutionary. The kidnapping storyline similarly benefits from audience familiarity with procedural conventions. Viewers understand the basic structure of danger and rescue, but suspense arises from emotional uncertainty. Who will respond first? How will the trauma affect relationships? What hidden motivations will emerge? Creative suspense depends less on surprise itself and more on emotional consequence. Random twists feel hollow unless they reshape characters emotionally. The best dramatic turns force characters into moral or emotional transformation. If the kidnapping merely creates temporary danger without lasting emotional impact, it becomes forgettable. But if it alters trust, relationships, or identity, it becomes meaningful storytelling. This emphasis on emotional consequence explains why audiences continue investing in long-running dramas. Procedural cases may vary week to week, but viewers remain attached because characters evolve emotionally over time. Creativity sustains longevity through character transformation rather than repetitive spectacle. The episode also highlights the relationship between creativity and audience expectation. Fans of established franchises carry emotional investments developed over years. Writers must navigate those expectations carefully. Ignoring fan emotional attachment risks alienating audiences, while pandering excessively risks creative stagnation. The Gibbs-Lala moment appears to succeed because it acknowledges audience anticipation without feeling artificially constructed. It rewards investment while still preserving emotional realism. Creativity often requires balancing predictability and surprise. Audiences want outcomes that feel satisfying but not obvious. They want emotional payoff but also uncertainty. This balancing act resembles many other creative disciplines. A successful painting balances familiarity and originality. A compelling novel balances structure and unpredictability. Music balances repetition and variation. Creativity is rarely about abandoning structure entirely. Instead, it involves manipulating structure in emotionally meaningful ways. Another important aspect of creativity visible in NCIS Origins is emotional memory. The franchise benefits from decades of audience connection to Gibbs as a character. Every new emotional revelation carries additional weight because viewers unconsciously connect present moments with future knowledge. This layered storytelling creates emotional richness. Audiences watching young Gibbs experience vulnerability understand the emotional walls he will eventually construct later in life. That dramatic irony deepens the emotional experience because viewers simultaneously witness innocence and inevitable loss. Creative storytelling often becomes most powerful when it engages memory. Nostalgia alone is insufficient, but emotional continuity creates resonance. Great franchises survive because they build emotional histories audiences carry internally. Every new story becomes connected to previous emotional experiences. The success of NCIS Origins also reflects the enduring importance of character-driven storytelling in an entertainment landscape increasingly dominated by spectacle. Modern television often emphasizes visual scale, shocking twists, and rapid pacing, yet audiences continue responding most passionately to emotionally grounded character moments. The Gibbs Lala scene became culturally significant not because of visual effects or action choreography, but because viewers cared emotionally. Creativity in storytelling ultimately depends on emotional truth more than technical complexity. Audiences forgive limited budgets or slow pacing when characters feel authentic. They rarely forgive emotional emptiness disguised as spectacle. This truth extends beyond television into broader creative practice. Technology changes constantly, but emotional storytelling remains timeless. Human beings continue seeking connection, vulnerability, meaning, and emotional recognition through art. Creativity succeeds when it illuminates aspects of human experience audiences recognize within themselves. In many ways, Gibbs represents a classic archetype, the emotionally guarded protector. Audiences connect with such characters because they embody universal struggles surrounding trust, grief, responsibility, and emotional expression. Lala's presence challenges that emotional isolation, making their relationship narratively compelling. The kidnapping storyline similarly taps into primal fears surrounding helplessness and loss of control. Creativity often resonates most deeply when it engages universal emotional anxieties. Audiences may never experience fictional scenarios directly, but they recognize the underlying emotions. Ultimately, the brilliance of this NCIS Origins development lies in its understanding of emotional timing. Creativity is not merely about generating ideas, it is about knowing when and how to reveal them. A premature emotional confession would have weakened the Gibbs-Lala relationship. A delayed payoff might have frustrated audiences. Likewise, the kidnapping twist works because it interrupts emotional resolution at precisely the right moment. Timing remains one of the least discussed yet most essential elements of creativity. Comedians rely on timing for humor. Musicians rely on timing for rhythm. Writers rely on timing for emotional impact. The difference between a forgettable scene and a powerful one often depends on pacing rather than content alone. The episode demonstrates that creativity thrives when storytellers trust emotional complexity. Rather than reducing characters to simple heroes or romantic archetypes, NCIS Origins embraces contradiction, vulnerability, suspense, and emotional uncertainty. The result is storytelling that feels human. As audiences continue discussing the Gibbs-Lala moment and speculating about the kidnapping aftermath, they are participating in the creative process themselves. Great storytelling invites emotional engagement beyond passive viewing. Fans analyze motivations, predict outcomes, debate meanings, and form emotional attachments because the narrative feels alive. That is perhaps the clearest sign of successful creativity. Art becomes meaningful when it continues existing in the audience's imagination long after the screen fades to black.